Hola, buenas noches, buenas tardes, good evening. Welcome to En Casa con la Plaza Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. And thank you for joining us on this wonderful August 10th, a Thursday night. Every other week, of course, we host Dan Guerrero and his special guests. But before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Coming up this week, and I'm going to share a screen here with you because we have so much going on that I'm going to just show you what we got. This weekend, we have Friday, August 11th, our Summer of Salsa. This is the third one we have for the year with Son Miron and Super DJ Robbie. Get there at 6 o'clock. That's when the doors open. And it goes on till 10. Dance floor. We have food by Tirsa's Mexicatarian. And then also La Plaza Cantina for the adult beverages. We have next Saturday, the Loma Film Festival, our first film festival that we've worked with the multicultural Americans of Southern California. That's on Saturday, August 12th. The MC is Juan Escobedo, who was a guest at Dan Guerrero Happy Hour a few weeks back. I'm going to skip over to the 19th of August, Saturday, with the 30th anniversary of Quetzal. Quetzal, of course, the preeminent Chicano band celebrating the 30th year. And then finally, on the 20th, we have the celebration of our brand new exhibition. I'm going to share a screen here again, called 18th and Grand, the Olympic Auditorium. It's our two temporary galleries filled with objects, with photographs and stories, recordings, audio, boxing and wrestling and lucha libre gear. It's an incredible exhibition. And of course, we're going to have on the 20th, we're a couple platicas, some workshops for families. And then that evening, we're hosting KCRW Summer Nights from 6 to 10 with Jungle Fire and DJ Jose Galvan. So it's a fun-filled afternoon of incredible music, art, history, cultura, all revolving around that venue that is known by many, the Olympic Auditorium. All right, that's it for me, but let's bring on the host of Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. Dan Guerrero, please join us.
You had me at adult beverages. When is that one? When is that one?
We'll have adult beverages this Friday with Son Miron, and then also the next week with Quetzal.
And Quetzal, they're the best. They, as you know, I'm on the board of the Vincent Price Art Museum, and we had our big gala 2 weeks ago, and Quetzal was the entertainment, and they just tore the place apart. And they're such beautiful people, Quetzal, Martha. I would say their little boy Sandino, he ain't so small anymore. He's grown up, and he's an amazing, plays the flute, the piano, an amazing falsetto voice. They're a beautiful family. They just got back from Japan. They were touring in Japan.
Incredible. No, I'm really looking forward to that evening with Quetzal and special guests, including La Marisol.
Wow. Wow.
So come on down.
Can you give me a comp? When is that?
No, that's free. All of our events are free. So Dan, even you could afford this one.
Okay, it sounds good to me. That's fantastic. Okay. I have a little fog. I'm so excited about tonight's guest. I even got a visit from a frog, but I'm okay. I'm going to start because I'm so excited about this. I'm excited always about all our guests, but
well, you're going to start and I'm going to leave. So
that sounds like a plan. That sounds like a plan. I'll see you at the end, right?
Yes.
Well, the end sounds so final. Goodbye. Okay, great. Oh, I hesitate to use the word pioneer to introduce tonight's guest. It makes it sound like she arrived in Los Angeles in a covered wagon. But she was a pioneer for women and Latinas in particular when she entered the world of TV news in a small town right fresh out of college. A time when it was fully the old boys club in the newsroom, but this Latina showed the old boys a thing or two, and she went on to become the legendary lady of Los Angeles television news. And I'm so excited to introduce you tonight. Zoom in, Laura Diaz.
Hi, how are you, Dan?
How are you? This is so exciting.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for that, because I know your schedule's impossible, but I was thrilled when you said, yeah, you were actually available tonight. So I took advantage of it. I do thank you about that. We're going to be, this is new a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you usually ask the questions, though I'm sure you're interviewed quite often, but if you're going to have a little bit of a little turnaround vacation this evening,
Yes,
I get to ask the question.
forward to it.
Yeah, but we are going to obviously talk about your storied career, your long distinguished career, but and you're still at it, of course. You've been at KTTV, Fox 11 since 2012, right? So you're yeah, so your cameras are your life. But before we get to all that, I really want to go back to the beginning. And I mean the real beginning. I knew that you were a California girl, born in Santa Paula, that I knew. I did not know that your earliest years were spent living with your family, obviously, in Fillmore at a farm workers camp. We have an image that you shared. That was, and your dad is there. He one standing there?
Yes, that's my dad, Rafael.
Wow. Do you have memories of those early years in the camp?
Well, we were quite young when I moved off, 4 years old when we moved to the Santa Clarita Valley, but I do have some remembrances. I remember the people I met and how kind people were to me. We lived in a very, very tiny house. It was just 2 bedrooms, and it was my family. I'm one of 4 children to Maria and Rafael, and my parents. My grandpa lived there, and my Aunt Rosie, who's not much older than I. So we were all in this little house, and we were living on the farm workers camp. And my parents, at that point, my mother was no longer working in the citrus fields. It was just my dad. She was taking care of us. But I do remember the long days and how hard my father worked. I remember how beautiful my grandpa's yard was. We had every kind of fruit that you could imagine. We had lemons and oranges and strawberry fields and wonderful food that my mom would go out and just pick it to make dinner for us. I remember that. We had chickens and a cow and a goat. And I remember that as a little kid walking out there. And we had one fierce rooster that would come and kind of attack you. And I wish I could find this picture. I couldn't find it, but it's sort of legendary in our family. I was about 2 years old, and I was terrified of that rooster because he would come and land on your head. And so my dad said to me, when you go out there, mija, you take the piece of wood. So if he's going to come get you, you swing the wood. And so they caught this picture of me. And again, I was only 2 years old, and I had a piece of wood that was almost as tall as I was. But I was determined if he came after me, it was him, not me. Yeah. So I like that picture because I think it sort of exemplifies of what I've done throughout my life, that I took on battles, and I tried with everything I could to take them on with courage and tenacity and to come out the victor.
I want to talk about it a little while, because in doing research, I'm no shrink, but I've come up with a couple of things. That's one of them that I think you had an inner strength very early on. It would appear to me. Maybe it started with that rooster. Who knows?
Maybe it's about to be my friend.
There you go. That was your first mentor, and you didn't even know.
Right.
I want to learn more about your mom and dad. And this is a beautiful, beautiful photo. I just love. Look at that couple. They're gorgeous. Tell me about your mom and dad. They were from Mexico, right?
Right. They were both from Michoacan, but they never met there. They met on the farm workers camp. Oh. And they met here. It was just happenstance that they happened to be from the same part of Mexico. Now, my father came over when he was 16, but my mother was 2. So my mother was more Americanized than my father. He didn't speak any English, and he taught himself English by reading the newspaper. And I mean, both of my parents were so smart. Sadly, they both passed on, but I carry them with me in my heart every day.
Well, you did have them a long time. I mean, it's still
I
difficult.
did. I did.
They got to see you become Laura Diaz.
Yes, they did. And they were so proud. They were so proud. They were proud of all their children. So I don't mean to diminish my siblings. But, you know, to have success that is visible is a gift that you can't imagine. I mean, it was not only a sense of pride to my family, but to my teachers and my fellow students, everybody, anyone who had participated in my growth. And that was such a point of pride to the area in which I grew up and my mentors, whether that was in the classroom or outside of the classroom. It was a collective success. I know that when the LA Times interviewed me, when I was so humbled and honored to be named the first Latina to anchor an English language broadcast in a major role, they asked me what it meant to me. And I said, you know, people stop me on the street and they say, I say to my children, she did it, you can do it. And to me, the entire Latino community stood up taller because I was given this position, which I earned, but I also was helped by so many people. So there is a collective sense of success. You know, success is never solitary. It's always so many people who came before you. It's all the people who helped you. It's the challenges, it's the successes that combine to make you who you are as a person. You know, Henry Alfaro, a great mentor of mine and a colleague and my co-host on Vista LA. But for me to achieve what I did, other people had to come before me and they had to be great at what they did. And every time somebody before me came and did a great job who happened to have a Spanish surname, they were pushing that door open just a little, just a little. So finally, when I got that big gig, I opened the door, but it was only because other people had made that door possible for me to open. I didn't do it alone.
But you live by all that today, where I know you've said many times that it's very important when you get into a position of power that then look back and extend a hand to bring someone else. And you're right. You know, you don't mean to speak for an entire culture or entire people, but with the Latinos, yes. When someone reaches a pinnacle, it is pride for all of us, for sure. We share that pride. And yeah, you don't do it alone, but you know, in a way you do. In a way you do. You know, people can push you all they can or open every door, but you also have to be ready for that challenge. Not only to have the talent for whatever area you're entering, but as a person to be able to deal with the stuff that one deals with in life. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you as a woman, as a Latina, as I said in the intro, is a very different time. And, you know, you're a kid. You know, what do you know at 20? And they throw you in the shark pool and you go, okay, I think I can stay afloat here, you know. So it is a collective triumph for sure. But before we leave your childhood, because I did meet your sister, I love this photo of you and your sister Nana. First of all, look at Nana
on the right.
Yeah, but you look I tell you look exactly the same. I could identify you. Don't you think you look the same, only shorter?
Yeah, I think pretty much, yeah. But I love, you know what I love about that picture, because my sister, we were just 13 months apart, right? So we were very close in age. You know what? I'm getting that wrong. I'm a bit older than that. That's my older brother and sister who are 13 months apart. We're more like 15 months apart. So we came along so close together in age that I always, I think, tried to mother her a little bit and look out for her. And you can tell by that picture that she's very spirited. Yeah. So it's kind of like I'm looking out for her like, gosh, I wish she'd behaved, which I think is funny, you know. And for years, many, many years, she was my personal assistant after I became so busy at work. So the irony of it is that I looked after her for those years in the formative years. And then as I went to work where it was 24/7, she looked out for me.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I met her briefly that day at La Plaza, and she is a pistol.
You met my older sister, Maria. You didn't
Oh,
meet.
that's right. That's
Yeah, yeah.
right.
But
That's
she
right.
is, my sister Maria, she is a total free spirit.
Yeah.
She did some acting and she's very dramatic and, she's beautiful. I think all my siblings are just so
Was
gorgeous.
it 4 girls? No boys? Was it?
3 girls and 1 boy. Yeah. My brother is the eldest. Yeah.
Wow.
And, he's the mijo of the group. So he had exalted status.
Of
As
course.
we used to say, when he walked in the room, the heavens parted for my mother. It was just, Eddie's here, Eddie's here. It was, Latina mothers and how they are.
Let's talk about the Laura who worked her way through Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, usually 2 jobs plus a full class, a roster. And but you didn't even major in journalism. How did you wind up going to that world? Because I know you loved literature, so you majored in English, got a BA in. Tell me about how that shift happened.
Well, I always loved writing. And so I did major English lit major. That's what my degree's in. But I was also taking classes in journalism. So if there had been a minor at Cal Poly at the time, I would have qualified for it. I had taken a lot of classes in journalism, but my passion was writing. And, I dreamed of writing the great American novel, like a lot of English majors. But as I got further along in my education, we had wonderful counselors at Cal Poly, and they would talk to me about a backup plan, right? And so as it got to my senior year, I started thinking more about what they had said. They encouraged me to try to get internships. So the summer before my senior year, I actually did an internship at IBM in Rochester, Minnesota, and I worked in the communications department. Wow. And I had a wonderful boss there. We were writing for the executives, we were writing the speeches and putting together the newsletter. And it was just a wonderful, immersive experience for me. And my boss said, whatever you do when you get back to school, Laura, you just write for whoever will let you write. And don't think about not getting paid. You just offer your services. And so with that great advice, I went back to San Luis Obispo, and that year I wrote for the Chamber of Commerce, and I kept knocking on the door of the local NBC station saying, let me work as an intern, let me work as an intern. And I would call, I don't know, like every other week. And he kept saying, we don't hire English majors. You have to have a degree in journalism or at least be studying it. But I think I finally wore the man down. And so he added me as an intern. And so towards the end of my senior year of college, I was out there learning how to shoot and write and edit. And he just kept on me and kept on me. And he really trained me. And I was so fortunate at the end of that, they asked me if I wanted a job. And so that's what I did. I went to work at KSBY right out of college. I was a little scared because I knew the others had a degree in journalism and mine was a little bit off to the right of that. But, my boss said to me, you know how to write. That's the key. You just need to learn how to write for broadcast. And so they taught me, and I learned how to write. I learned how to shoot. I learned how to edit. And let me tell you, Dan, all those experiences were so invaluable to me later, even to this day, because I know how to shoot. I know what a shot looks like. I know what I need when I'm telling a story. I'm not allowed to touch the equipment anymore because we have unions. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I would know how to operate that particular version of the camera. Yeah, but I know the fundamentals. I maybe know more than the fundamentals. And that's all helpful to me when I'm doing my job.
And knowing fundamentals is the real deal, because there are people who know how to run those machines, but that doesn't give them the gift of actually writing or,
Right.
Wow. No, we have a very short video from just last summer, and we thank California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo for us to use it. But it brings us full circle from that young Laura to this Laura in the video, which I just love. Can we do that, Abelardo?
Today, it is my honor to confer an honorary degree on behalf of Cal Poly and the California State University. I would like to invite Laura Diaz to step forward to receive an honorary degree of Humane Letters.
And I would like to take just a minute, as the daughter of immigrants, the second in my family to graduate from college, my parents, Maria and Rafael, who worked so hard their whole lives. Your dream lives on.
I love that. I love that. What a moment that was for you.
It really was. I still choke up when I look at it.
Yes, yes, yes. That was Cal Poly president Jeffrey Armstrong. But I mean, well, like we were talking earlier before we started about looking back, and as you stood there, you must have remembered young Laura running between classes and 2 jobs and whatever you're doing, and there you were. That's very emotional.
Yeah, it really, honestly, Dan, it was a full circle moment for me. And it was just so beautiful to have that moment, and my family and friends were there. I wish my parents were alive to see it, but you know, I'm a Christian and I believe that they were there with me.
They were. They
I
were.
was-
They are.
I was so honored that the university did that for me. It was incredible to be honored in that way. And honestly, you know, I've said this when I have given speeches, you have to excuse me one second. There is nothing that I could do in my life. And I've done a thing or two that would match what my parents did. They came over, they couldn't speak English. They were in a foreign land. My dad learned English by reading the newspaper. He worked 2 jobs. He moved us off the farm workers camp when I was 4. That's why I don't have that many remembrances of it, because he decided that the only way we were going to compete in this country was if we could get a good education. And so he found one of the best school systems in Southern California for public schools so that his children could have the opportunity that he did not. And my dad did that. And a man with 4th grade education in his native Mexico, he came up with that plan and then he executed it. I mean, he's the genius. He's the brilliant one. He's the architect of success of the Diaz family story.
It's the parents, your parents, those parents. And that photo of them is so beautiful. I could see you in each of them. At first, I thought you looked like your dad, but I could see your mom as well, you know. And you're still very close with your siblings. You're a very tight family.
Yes, yes. My mom was the glue. You know, my mom, she kept the family together. She was an incredible cook. My mother could never say an unkind word about anybody. She's that person. She always saw the best in people, even when some of us would go, really, Mom, that person, you see that? But she had the ability to find the goodness in people. And I think because of her, she propelled us forward. I think my dad came up with the plan. My mom kept the family together. And she taught us that nothing was more important than family. And so that is why we're still so close today as a unit. You know, in good times and in bad, we're there. We're still the family that she cemented. And I think it was the teamwork of my parents that enabled us to go on and achieve our dreams. But thank you to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for one of the most beautiful moments of my life.
Yeah, I mean, that moment is beautiful. So I was very happy that we were able to stream it and share it. You touched on this earlier, and I said that I had been thinking about it, and I think this probably came early. I know your parents stressed education and work ethic and all that, but I wonder if they were involved, because as I read more and watched your interviews online and things, you would say, it seems to me that you always had a very strong inner drive. And also, it would have seemed to me a very strong and an early sense of self. And that's a really important thing. And I think it's not everybody maybe has it, but I think it's extremely important, a sense of self. And you seem to have had that early. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think I knew from the time that I was very young that I was going to be successful. It was really important to me that I wanted to live out my dream. One story that my mom used to tell is that when I was about 3 years old, she came in, and the neighbor lady, I used to play with the little girl next door. She came in, and I had a book up, and I was reading to about 4 kids. And the neighbor Beth said, I didn't know she could read. And my mom said, she can't read. She memorized the book and she's pretending to read.
Oh my, how old are you? How old are you then?
I was 3. I was 3 and I was pretending to read and to tell a story. So I just think I wanted to be a storyteller from the time I was very small, you know. And I think it was just something inside of me that I had a desire to tell a story. And I'm so grateful that I get to tell the stories of people of Southern California, and that for so many years they have trusted me to tell their story. Because I'm sure you've had this experience, Dan, where somebody comes to you and they want you to tell them something, and they're not going to use all of what you said. They're going to use part of what you said, right? So we all fear being taken out of context, being misquoted, being edited so abruptly that you don't get the tenor of what was said. And I think the longer I've been in the business, the more I realize that is a really privileged position for people to trust you with their story. And I see people at their best. I see people, you know, you're there when they get the most amazing, exalted status or achievement or award. And I see people at the lowest depths of their life when they've lost somebody they've loved, or somebody even worse, where they've lost multiple people. And I've seen people literally on the ground in grief. And I'm given the task, I'm given the responsibility of telling their story and expressing their story in a way that is worthy of what they've told me. And the longer I do it, the greater I realize what a responsibility it is.
It is deep, it's heavy. And I was about to say that, how do you keep from getting emotional? It must be very difficult. I'm sure there are stories that touch you deeply, and yet you have to have empathy in order to get your story across, because I know you are a passionate storyteller. You also have a very strong sense of responsibility to serve your viewer. Yes. And to bring those two things together in a story that you can stay calm and be reporting it, but at the same time, give it the human element. That's a very tough line to walk.
Well, I think the years of experience really help. You know, I've been at it for a long time. I'm grateful for the opportunities I've been given. What I try to do when I'm interviewing people is to be very emotionally present. Yes. And to listen with every fiber of my being. You know, you'll see a young reporter, they'll come with a list of questions. They're looking at the questions. They're not even listening to what the person's saying.
That's right.
And yes, it's you have to be aware of to whom you're talking and what they're saying. And I found over the years too, that sometimes the question that I had no idea I was going to ask in advance, it comes to me in the moment, and it's because I've been listening.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen, and I mean major people on TV, and they're interviewing someone, and the person goes, blah, 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 and then I murdered my neighbor, and then the reporter says, and then you moved to New York, and I'm like, wait, because, you know, I'm listening, and they're obviously, as you say, going to the next question and not listening.
Right. So I try to listen intently when I'm conducting an interview. When I go to write the story, there's a whole process, of course. We get the interview, we get the video. I look at it, I carefully craft it, I choose what I can use. You know, we're local news, I don't get to go on forever. Sometimes a piece is minute 30. If I'm very lucky, it'll go 5 minutes. But still, I have to really whittle it down. And so I have to be selective about what I can use. And every word that I choose has to matter.
Yes.
So that's the process, and that's what I do. And I try to be very careful and caring in how I do it, and above all, accurate.
Now, most of the time, or much of the time, obviously you get assignments because this just happened and that just happened. Do you sometimes hear about a story or find out about someone and you take it and you bring it to the table and say, I'd like to do a story or on this. Do you have that kind of freedom?
Yes, I mean, because obviously I've been doing it for many years. My managers do listen to me. And if I'm very passionate about a story, I would say my batting average is about 90% for getting it pushed through. Sometimes I can't just because we don't have enough people that day or something happens. If it's exclusive, I have a much greater chance of getting it pushed through because it's a competitive business. So you get kind of pushed to the front if you've got something that nobody else has. But yes, they do listen to me. And again, I'm grateful that people listen, and that includes my management at work. Yes.
Well, but you have earned it. I have a quote that I was going to use later, but I'm going to bring it on now because it touches a little bit about, you talked about experience. I just love this. You said this in an interview I saw. My longevity has been a plus. With the time comes experience. With time comes experience. And that comes with maturity. And with that comes confidence. You have to be solid in who you are. That quote says a million things.
Thank you. I think it's very true. You know, it's a gift to do what you love, and to get to do it for your life, for your career, is even a greater gift, right? So few people will get to do what they really love in life.
That's sad but true.
It is. Yes, it is true. And when I'm at work and I'm doing something I love, I'm not even aware of the fact that I'm working, because it's such a joy to do. And I'm sure you feel the same way. When you're creating and you're doing, you're so in the moment, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like your passion project, which it is.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I think that all of that combines to make it just a really pleasurable experience. And I feel grateful for the time that I've spent doing it, because I know what's important now. I don't have to waffle in a decision. I know it in my gut almost right away.
Yeah, I have people who say to me, are you going to retire? I'm going, retire? It's fun. Putting on big events and singers, and you're backstage, and what retire? You know, I understand retiring if you've been digging ditches or, you know, hard labor, you retire. But in our world, not so much. I want to go back a little bit to KSBY and that whole time, and then you were in Fresno for a while. All this is before Los Angeles, and the climate at that time for a woman, for a Latina. You know, that you didn't get you got the light stories, and you got, yes. I mean, and was there a real sense of competition between the sexes? It seems to me it was that's when I was thinking about a young Laura who's, you know, 20, 22, and she's thrown in this very complex environment.
I think for young women coming up during that time, it was a complicated time, right? I mean, I just watched the Barbie movie, and they talked a lot about the patriarchy, and I'm thinking, I don't even know what the patriarchy is today. What we went through, I mean, are you kidding me? It was tough. And our newsroom happened to have at KSBY quite a few women, and those women are still my closest friends. In fact, they were there when I got my honorary doctorate. That's how tight we are.
Oh, wow. They must have been more thrilled than you.
Oh, everybody. It was just a love fest of a weekend. It went on for days, and our hearts were full. So we were all very tight, and that was important. And actually, our managing editor was a woman. Sadly, she got cancer and she died later, but we used to call her the den mother. And she called us the sorority. So I did have female mentorship in the room, but I was the only minority when I first got there. Eventually, they hired another Latina, and they eventually hired another woman who her background was as a Filipina. But there was one man in particular who was really dreadful. And I was told by my friends in the newsroom, he used to call me the minority reporter behind my back. Which, okay, I used it as fodder. I didn't really let it get to me. They were more offended than I was, because I thought, I'm going to show him. And so when I first started, I was in the local newsroom in KSBY. And then when he became news director, he moved me to Santa Maria and the outer limits. And the people in the newsroom who were my friends, they felt that he was trying to bury me. so that I wouldn't be able to hit the deadline and then he could fire me. That I'm not sure if that was true, but that's what my girlfriends thought. But I outfoxed him and I worked really hard and I broke some stories out there and I shot all my own stuff and I excelled at shooting. I really did. There was a time when I actually thought about becoming a videographer and not being on camera. That's how much I loved it. So I broke some stories and eventually I was moved up and he was let go. So I outlived him. And actually, I went on to become one of the lead anchors there. And then I went from there to Fresno. I was only at KSBY for under 2 years. And then I moved to Fresno. I was there for 8 months when Channel 7 came a knocking. So I was a young kid.
Yeah.
And I was so fortunate. Again, mentorship, right? I had mentors in the newsroom, my photographer there, Alberto Dominguez, he was my photog. And he said, when you go home next time, I need you to go check out my friend, Henry Mendoza. He's with the CCNMA and he'll let him look at your tape. And I said, I had just signed a contract. I said, I'm not going anywhere. You know, why would I need him to look at my tape? And he said, well, he'll give you some tips on how to do better live shots. Cause I had just learned how to do live shots. It was an El Nino year. So I was in mud and, you know, rain and rocks up to my knees, but you know, that's live television. People love it. So I went down to KABC and I took his advice and he was walking me through the newsroom. He says, do you want to meet the new assistant news director? And I said, okay. So we sit down. I'm just a kid. So you don't know enough to be afraid. Okay. I'm sitting there with Roger Bell, who was the assistant news director who had just been promoted. And he starts talking to me and he's making small talk and Henry just had met me. He knew me all of 13 seconds. And so Roger Bell says to me, do you have a reel? And I said, yeah, I got it here in my pocket. I was going to show it to Henry. And he said, can I have it? And I looked at Henry and Henry's like, give it to him, give it to him. So I handed it to him. And we walked around the newsroom and he said, I think it's great you met the assistant news director. And I had come home to see my family at Easter. I no sooner got back than they were calling me. They wanted me to come down for an interview. They had looked at the reel and they wanted to look at me as a potential person to hire.
Wow.
And I mean, I was dumbfounded because I was still a newbie. I was less than 3 years in the business. Now, at that point, people would spend 10 years getting to LA. You were really expected to be heavily vetted. They wanted people with a lot of experience. So I didn't realize that it was a full-on interview for a job until I was about halfway through lunch, you know, and then I got back and they offered me the job. So
When it's lunch, you know, that's a serious meeting.
is it?
Yes, when there's food involved, they are not kidding. They're not kidding. Wow. So now you're in Los Angeles and you had a storied career at KABC 7 for sure that involved, and you mentioned that earlier, of course, Vista LA. And for those who live in other parts of the country, we're big. We're big. We're all over the country, even Canada.
Awesome.
Yeah. And Vista LA was, I believe, the first English, KBC TV was the first English language TV station to create a magazine format program that was focused specifically on the Latino community. And it was arts and culture and politics. It was incredible. And you hosted that with Henry in the beginning. We have a photo, I think, of you and Henry. There he is.
Yes.
Yeah. How many years did you do Vista LA in addition to everything else there?
Gosh, I want to say not quite 10, but I think close.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And it was such a delightful show. It was a magazine show. So we would go, you know, offset and go various places. I don't know if you have the photo of us at the Getty Center.
No, just that one.
But I remember that one because it was a Christmas show and the Getty Museum had just opened and they allowed us to come in and shoot a show there. And it was really spectacular. And Velia Lagarda, who was my producer, she would always come up with these great ideas and execute them. And it was such a fun time. And, you know, obviously Latinos in LA, they loved the show. It aired on Sundays. And it was must-see TV, certainly for my mom, but a lot of other
Me too. Me too. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it was at least a decade. At least a decade. Yeah.
And it was a full plate because by the time at the end, I was doing the 5 and the 11 o'clock news and shooting Vista LA in between shows. And it was a crazy life. And that's when I would tell you, my Nana was my right-hand person. And sometimes, you know, she'd meet me by a freeway off ramp because I'd need to do another shoot that I didn't know about. She had a second set of clothes or shoes or knives or whatever I needed. She was Johnny on the spot so that I could hit my deadlines. And so thank you, Nana. Thank you for everything you did for me. You are and were the best. Yeah.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you. Now, then finally, Dorothy gets to Oz. And you made broadcast TV history in 1997, which only seems a couple of years ago to me, but I guess it's been a little longer, becoming the first Latina lead TV anchor in LA or the Southland, I believe, right? In the Southland, that was true broadcast TV broadcast history. Did it, how did you feel? What a stupid question. You were obviously thrilled, but I'm saying, did it feel overwhelming or wow, or wow? It must have been everything.
Yeah, I think it was all of those emotions wrapped into one. I was so excited. I was thrilled. I was humbled. I was honored. I was a little bit scared because I didn't want to mess up for the people coming up behind me, right? You need to be a success. We're all judged, especially the first one. You have to put out an image and a success rate that they'll invite other people behind you is what I felt in the moment. And so, yes, it was a wonderful moment and my heart was full. I felt ready for the task. I had worked a long time as a reporter and an anchor, and I felt that I had the necessary years and skill set, and I had a support group around me so that I could succeed. I felt all of those things at once. And it was an enormously proud moment for my family, for my teachers, for my community, and certainly for the Latino community, at least as it was expressed to me when I was out and about.
And one of the things, as we spoke about earlier, in terms of, you know, you wind up, like it or not, being a role model. So obviously young Latinos have been looking up to you for decades now, but the interesting thing I read somewhere that your early role models in that world were Barbara Walters and especially Diane Sawyer. Mm-hmm. So how does this little Mexican-American girl look at Diane Sawyer or them, these white ladies, and think, I can do that?
Well, I think because they were both really skilled journalists and they were my role models at ABC, right? There were no really women of color. You know, Carol Simpson was there and she's African American, so I could look to her. Yeah. But most of the women who were breaking stories and had a seat at the table where the men were, they were Diane and they were also Barbara Walters. And so I looked to them and I thought, okay, they're a woman and they've done it. I'm a woman. Yes, I'm a woman of color, but I can do it too. And so I looked to them as someone who was a big J journalist, great on their feet, good on camera. I didn't want to just do the features, Dan. I wanted to do the big stories. I wanted to do politics. I wanted to do the lead story. I wanted to be the one who was out there in places where maybe some women at that time might have been afraid to be, but I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid. I mean, during the riots, I went out with the camera crew and there were others, of course, who were out. We were all trying to cover the story. At that time, I was anchoring the 6 o'clock news. Ann Martin and Paul Moyer were anchoring the 11 o'clock news. But my camera crew and I went out and we were covering the looting that was happening on South Sunset. And a guy, one of the looters, was going after a television that had fallen off the back of the flatbed truck. And he looked up and saw us and he didn't want us taking video of him. And he pulled out a gun. You know, so you do place yourself sometimes in circumstances that are potentially dangerous or uncomfortable. But that was the news of the day. And we were trying to cover the news of the day, which included what was happening in the streets. Now, it didn't mean that we didn't go back and cover the issues that were happening in the inner city that perhaps precipitated the civil unrest that occurred over that period. We did all of that. We had town hall meetings and we certainly went back and tried to tell people stories. One of the stories that I'm proud of that I did during my time at KABC, I followed kids from all the flashpoints of the riot, from Koreatown, South LA, also near, I'm trying to remember where I was. Another community. Anyway, we had kids of all different backgrounds who had seen the riots up close and personal, and they responded to it on a visceral level. Mount Washington, that's where it was. And so we followed them over many years as they progressed of what that
Really?
experience
Wow.
meant to them and how they internalized it. And it was quite meaningful. And I still hear from a few of them. Yeah. And they've grown up to be really nice young people.
That particular situation reminds me that one of your other passions is documentaries, that you often think about being a documentary filmmaker. Is that something you can work into your regular insane schedule, or is this going to have to be in the future?
Well, I'm trying now to see if I can get something off the ground, because it is my passion, that long form storytelling, to not be able to just tell a story in a minute 30 or 5 minutes, but to really delve in and show it from all aspects, because it is my passion. And if I do have an next act, that's what I envision.
Sure, you have quite a few acts left, Miss Diaz. Now we can't forget we had that beautiful video we saw, but listen to this, folks. 14 Emmys. That's 10 and 4, 14 Emmys, 2 Golden Mike Awards. Those are extremely prestigious and not easy to get. Well, either are Emmys, but the Golden Mikes, 3 Imagen Awards. And just last year, on the list of most influential Latina journalists in California, and the LA Press Club's highest honor, the Joseph M. Quinn Award for Journalistic Excellence and Distinction, which must have been also a little more extra special because they're your colleagues, right? That's a whole, those are your colleagues. Many of your heroes, I'm sure, are part of that, and they honored you for really lifetime of excellence in there.
You know, I've been so blessed in my life, Dan. I feel I would have done it without any awards, just because it was my passion. But for people to acknowledge you for what you do and to think it's special, of course, it really resonates on a deep level. And I feel so grateful that I've had those opportunities and those moments, and that I could share them with my family. My family, they were all there. My parents were there for the Joseph M. Quinn Award. And they were so happy that night. And we had a party afterwards. I threw a party, and my family was there and my friends were there. And, you know, so many people work hard in life and they never get any acknowledgement. So to have that experience it's just a gift, really.
Yeah. There was one that I think might have been special as well, when you were honored by the Mexican consulate, and there was a very important guest there. We have that photo, Abelardo. Hello. Abelardo. Well, it was with your mom.
Yes.
And I'm saying, there we go. Look at that face. I'm saying for her that the Mexican consulate was honoring you. That must have been extra for her.
You can see it on her face.
Right?
Well, she always looks like an angel to me, but you could see how proud she was. And my dad couldn't be there. He retired and moved to Baja. And I can't remember now why he couldn't be there that night, but he wasn't able to make it. But he said to me, Mija, out of everything that's ever happened, I am the proudest of that award. To think of, I came over to this country, that the Mexican consulate is honoring you. It just was profound. It was wonderful. Thank you for that.
I think we should toast Maria and Rafael.
Here's
and you. A flute. You're serious. You got a flute there.
Little bubbly.
We could go on for 5 hours, and maybe we'll do chapter 2 in a few months after you catch your breath. This has been so special for me. And I think for our viewers, I thank you so much. And the wonderful news is that these happy hours live forever. They're not only in the, well, what we're building is kind of an oral history at La Plaza of prominent Latinos, but it will live on YouTube and everywhere forever. And I'm proud of that because I think, I don't know, I learned a lot from you tonight, and I'm very grateful that we had some time together here. So Abelardo, have people been
Yes,
zap-
they have.
What do you call them? You should know, Laura. When you're zooming, are they viewers? Are they audio? Who are they?
They're participants, they're viewers, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm
There
thinking
are audience, there are people.
there are peeps. There are peeps.
Yes.
Okay.
We have Chuy Velo here on Facebook. He's saying a groundbreaking historic person. Always loved that woman.
Ah,
That's a
Yeah.
friend, Chuy Velo.
Thank
Also,
Chuy.
Mariam Lopez, Ms. Diaz. Thank you for the positive Latina representation all these years. Seeing ourselves represented well helps the next generation.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
And then we have from some guy we know here by the name of John Echeveste. A big thanks to
Echeveste
Laura.
was the former head of La Plaza de Cultura y Artes.
Oh,
A big
The great
thanks to Laura for all her work in the community as an MC with nonprofit orgs.
I tried my best to give back. I still do, hopefully.
You do a lot, a lot.
And personally, I'd like to thank the both of you for serving as the hosts for our recent celebration of life in Memoria de Gloria Molina, which took place at La Plaza back in July 15th. So thank you so much for your wonderful MC presentations and the way that you were able to keep the performance, not the performance, but the speakers that came up and the performances. It was real well done. We got a lot of great positive response from it. So thank you.
It was
Yeah.
kind of a bittersweet afternoon, of course, celebrating that beautiful lady that we lost way too early. But Hilda Solis and former Mayor Villaraigosa and Maxine Waters, it was a very it's the kind of people she deserved, you know.
It was a beautiful event, and it was so lovely to meet so much of Gloria's family.
Yeah.
To see her daughter and her grandchild and all the primos and primas. It was a really special afternoon. So kudos to you guys for putting it together.
Yeah, they do good stuff there. And we may be doing something next year. I can't say what, but it all is centered on Michoacan.
Oh,
Yeah, so
hey,
I
I
can't
gotta represent the family.
That's right. So you'll be front and center if it all works out, and it better, I'm going to be very unhappy.
Excellent.
We got to keep Dan happy.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
that's right. Laura, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for having you guest tonight, and I hope I see you soon in person again.
I hope so too. And thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me. I feel really honored that you would include me among such esteemed panelists you've had in the past. And here's to salud.
Salud.
Okay? All the
Salud.
greats.
And to your friend Mark and his wonderful studio there.
Okay, here's to Mark.
To
All
Mark.
right.
Okay, thank you, Miha. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Dan. And thank you to all of you who tuned in for today's En Casa con la Plaza Dan Guerrero Happy Hour. It was a great one. And as you know, we record these and we post them on our YouTube channel. So you could watch them anytime, along with Dan's so many other esteemed guests which have come on to share their stories with us. Thanks to our sponsors, Kaiser Permanente, Union Pacific Foundation, and of course the staff and board of directors at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes for making this possible. So until the next time, Dan, have you come up with your next guest yet?
I want to surprise people, which means I haven't set them yet, but I will. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Okay. Well, we usually do this every other week. However, we're taking an extra week because Dan's going to be out of town. I'm going to be out of town. So tune in on the 31st of March, 3 Thursdays from now, to our program. And in the meantime, of course, always visit La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. We're open Wednesday through Sunday from 12 to 5. And as I mentioned, we're opening up our brand new exhibition, 18th and Grand. the first floor gallery opens tomorrow. They've been scrambling, our preparators and our curators have been scrambling to get it done, and it's going to be an incredible show. So that's tomorrow, but the grand opening celebration takes place on Sunday, August 20th, with an entire afternoon and evening of fun activities. So I hope to see you there. Check out our Facebook page at La Plaza LA, our X page. I was going to say Twitter, but now the X page at La Plaza LA, and also on YouTube at La Plaza LA, and our website, lapca.org. And con eso, muy buenas noches a todos. Hasta la próxima. Adiós.
Bye.